So the tax bill was a good plus. Another one, which is ongoing, which does not get headlines, but is absolutely crucial, is deregulation. Regulations, excessive regulations, are equivalent to a tax. They put a huge burden, huge cost, diversion of time and attention and talent. And regulations cost this economy, experts estimate, $2 trillion a year, bigger than most economies around the world. And just to give you how burdensome these things had become, between 2006 and 2016, 300,000 new rules and regulations were promulgated in this country, falling disproportionately on manufacturing. You want to know why manufacturing took such a huge hit? It wasn't just changing technologies and all that stuff. The tax burden on a typical manufacturing worker ranges whether the manufacturer would pay, manufacturing company would range between $2,000 and $5,000. It's estimated that the cost of regulations per manufacturing worker, keep that $2,000, $5,000 in mind, cost of regulations per worker, $20,000 to $35,000 per worker to comply. You want to know why a sector faltered? That tells you all you need to know. Congress passes about 140 laws a year, but regulatory agencies in Washington, which has the force of law, 3,000 to 4,000 rules, which have the force of federal law. So how many rules and regulations and laws are there in Washington? The last estimate I saw was about 150 million words. And nobody knows what they are. There was a book written several years ago by a Boston lawyer called Harvey Silverglate. The title tells you all you need to know: 3 felonies a day. If you're in a position of responsibility without you even knowing it, you're probably committing 3 felonies a day. You don't even know it. So if they want to get you, they can. Just one example among zillions. New York Times did a story on this a couple of years ago. An apple orchard in upstate New York is subject to 5,000 different rules from 17 different programs and agencies. They have 13 clipboards inside their little headquarters just to keep track of all the things they're supposed to be doing. And one of the idiocies, among many, is that there's a rule that when you take the apples off the tree and put them in the wagon to take them to the barn to be processed, you must have a certain kind of tarp to cover it. Why? So the birds don't poop on it. Now, step back and think, the apples have been on a tree in the open for 5 months. I mean, and you don't think they don't wash them when they bring them in? I mean, but those kind of things just wear you down, grind you down. And so that's one reason why business formations in this country, we've always been better than the rest of the world in new business formations, really plummeted relative to our economy in the last generation or so. They're starting to show signs of life again. But there are steps being taken in the right direction. A little over a year ago, the Federal Communications Commission repealed regulations on the Internet that were based on 1932 dial-up telephone regulations. People at the time said, oh, this will be the end of the Internet. No, the Internet's doing very nicely, thank you very much. You don't need dial-up telephone regulations. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, approvals are moving up, not at the expense of quality, but especially in generics, which is copying an already existing drug where the patent is expired. Shouldn't take 4 years to approve the copy of it. So they're making some progress there. So on the regulatory side, and I can't resist, just a couple of examples, the idiocies of all this rulemaking. Not to bore you, but in the last 50 years, law has turned from saying don't do this or don't do that into an instruction manual where they tell you in the minute way not just what you shouldn't do or should do, but they try to spell it out in advance. So a teacher in a classroom, there are manuals now, rules about how you discipline students, how you teach. Teachers manuals telling how to teach, are almost like a federal income tax code, which just leads to paralysis. And the things that are buried in the federal code in terms of laws and regulations. For example, you have a dog, and they have these leashes now which are flexible, so you don't have to choke the pooch when you're walking them around. If you go on federal property and your leash maximum length is more than 6 feet, you and your pooch have violated federal law. just think you are a criminal. That's the kind of nonsense. And what it leads to in terms of, and there was a town in California, because kids run around, they can get hurt, banned kids from running during recess. The whole point of recess is to let off the steam. But this is the kind of nonsense, uncommon sense that permeates. And one grim example, in Virginia, a volunteer fire department, they heard over the radio that a young girl was choking at a restaurant. She had some disease, heart condition. So they rush over in the truck, get her to the emergency room. She's turning blue, saved her, got her in the emergency room in time. You'd think that those two volunteer firefighters would be hailed, responding quickly, saving this girl. No, they got fired. Why? They got brought back, but they got fired originally because the rules say you cannot use a fire truck to transport people. And they transported this girl, so therefore they're a violation of the rules. That's the kind of idiocy that we have out there. So fortunately, we're starting to make some progress in combating some of that just sheer uncommon sense idiocy. But there are, though, storm clouds over the economy's horizon.